Hello friends, welcome back to the channel and thank you for joining me today for part 3 of my 12-part near-death experience compilation, in which we are hearing from multiple near-death experiencers on various topics. Today is going to be part 1 of the life review. So we'll be hearing from multiple people on what the experience of the life review was like for them. If you'd like to connect with any of my guests, I will have their names displayed on the screen as they are speaking, and I will have each of them listed in the description box with their contact links. If you'd like to connect with me, you can also find my links to my social media in the description if you'd like to support this channel. Thank you for watching. That helps out a lot just by itself, but my Patreon link is also in the description box. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy.
This intense presence was coming up behind me. This overwhelming, cosmic, wise, powerful. I grew up in a conservative Christian home, and I'm holding my little boy thinking, oh my goodness, that's God. That's God coming. And then the guilt began to bubble up again. I thought, my little boy's here because I lost control of the car. His life was cut so short because I crashed and he died, and I began to weep, and the guilt, and this presence was coming closer and closer. And as I held my son and the presence came right behind me, I had the thought, I hope I can be forgiven. I was fearful, very fearful. And as soon as I had the thought, I hope I can be forgiven, and this almost felt physical. It's like those divine arms just wrapped around and held me and held him, just wrapped around us. And then that's when the download came. Just this huge outpouring. It's like the lid came off, and just truth and knowledge and wisdom and light and love. And the first thing that was communicated is there's nothing to forgive. There's nothing to forgive. Everything's in perfect divine order. And I thought, how can that be? And then I suppose it's what they call the life review. My life was presented before my eyes, or I don't know that it flashed before my eyes, but I began to see my life. I saw my childhood, my parents' divorce, the insecurities that, caused in me, the role my brothers played, the accident. There was things I was saying, oh, no, that was a mistake. That was a mistake. But in these loving divine arms, I was told there are no mistakes. Your life is perfect. And I would say, well, that was wrong. I knew it was wrong. I did it anyway. And this beautiful being communicated, those are your judgments of it, not ours. We love you. And it was so profound to be holding my son. And what was communicated was, you're as precious and perfect and divine to us as the child you hold. We love you. I mean, it was this overwhelming, unconditional outpouring of love. And it was very personal to me. But I knew if that was true of me, that was true of all of us, every one of us. And I saw things so much differently. It's as if I was seeing things as God sees them, and yet it was much different than I thought he would see them, or she would see them, or they would see them. It felt like the entire universe had gathered in support of me and my life and this love for my son, and yet that love was magnified out.
Then everything sort of happened. I went into the life review right there on the spot. I'd actually always been curious if that was a real phenomena, because I was fascinated by that. Like, how could that happen? How could every single moment of your life flash before your eyes in such detail and in less than a second? That was fascinating to me, that could happen for people. And there it was happening right on the spot. And it was as if, this sort of membrane that I was unconscious of for the most part was being peeled off of me. And at the same time as I was going through every single experience in Technicolor 3D 4K detail, detail that I rarely ever was tuned into when I was apparently living my life. And so every little success was seen, and the successes were often moments that I wouldn't think of as anything. Some of the successful moments were kind of like looking out a window on a rainy day and falling into this deep space of appreciation and gratitude, or these moments of looking at puddles in the playground, while walking, and having this sense of, oh, you were touching the infinite right there. You were allowing that to live through you without any resistance. And then of course the moments where there was fear, where I had lied, where I'd been wearing a mask to protect myself, those were seen in total detail. And it was as if I had a Virgil there with me, like in Dante's Inferno. I had there was this aspect of consciousness which both felt like me, but also kind of felt separate, that I felt throughout my life here and there as well. But usually I was kind of recoiled, because it tended to come in and in some ways and say, oh, that's not a good idea, sort of thing. Didn't want to hear it. I was like, no, we're fine. We're gonna do what we do. But there it was, and only here I was completely relaxed into it. There was no resistance, and so there was no judgment at all. It was just sweet and very matter of fact and hyper objective. Like, all right there, this is what happened. And so, and with each of those sorts of scenes, there was just total forgiveness, and boy, that was such a wonderful feeling. It was a sense of just untying knots that I had no idea I was keeping together. Like boom, 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 off the knots go. And I realized I'd been wearing a kind of a straitjacket of my own making all those years. That was actually one of the sort of conscious reflections I remember having sort of along the way. It was during that experience, was wow, it's like I was talking to the subjective consciousness. Wow, I've had an easy life and I'm only 13. How the hell did I? Wow, I had no idea you could get so much time with a relatively easy life like that. And if I'm this strange, God, I'm imagining people with much more difficult lots. And so off it came, and by the end, that this sort of the bullshit suit was unzipped. There was just this total sense of freedom, this total sense of love. There was no difference between I and thou, or self and the world. Those sorts of distinctions just were null and void and moot and altogether off.
It was like watching an old-fashioned black and white movie on an old-fashioned movie reel. And so I'm watching this movie, and it was my life from the time I was born until the time that I was hit by the lightning and died. And I'm watching it, and it goes by so fast, like that fast, and it was over. And I thought, gosh, my life must have been boring. It was over so quick. And I thought, I'm missing something, and I'm not sure what it is I'm missing. So I asked my brothers, and they were like, just smiling, and they were kind of, I thought, you're going to pull the brother card on me here. You're not going to answer me. I said, that's not right. But I guess what I was missing was that there was absolutely no judgment. I didn't feel judged, and I didn't realize I was supposed to be judging myself. And God didn't judge me, and I didn't judge me. So there was no judgment, and that was it. It was over. We were done, and then we were moving on to the next thing.
And they communicated that we were, going to go into the light. We went into the light, into this area that was spherical, like a giant bubble. And when we went into that, I started reliving my life. And when I say that, that sounds so simple, but I was able to do it. I was reliving my life, not only from my perspective, but from everyone I'd ever interacted with before. It was like my consciousness fragmented into these multiple streams of consciousness so that I could experience it not only from my perspective, but, you know, everyone else that I ever had any interactions with. It was intense. It was incredibly humbling. And the thing that even made it more humbling was the fact that the soul family that had greeted me were in there with me, and they were experiencing it just like I was. And they weren't judging me. They were just loving me. In fact, if anything, they seemed rather excited to be able to do this with me. And like Melissa said, I had a harsh philosophy when in my younger days. I was pretty brash young man, and I didn't really. I was very self-involved, and I really didn't care about other people all that much. And it was just the way I was brought up, and my early life that kind of conditioned me that way. And so I saw a lot of things where I was being incredibly harsh and self-centered, that I was ashamed that my soul family were experiencing this, you know. And I got to see how I interacted with people and how I wasn't real pleased with who I was. And but I also got to see where I would do something with loving intention that was, you know, I wasn't looking for anything. I would just do it with loving intention. And those would create some of the biggest ripples, because everything we do in life creates ripples, after effects. And so they would just radiate outward. Every action is has an equal reaction, right? We all learn that in school. Well, it's the same thing with our interactions with other people. We may not realize that when we say something harsh to someone, that it affects them in ways that we can't perceive, because we actually are interconnected with everything in the universe. And so you get to see this in this life review. You get to see that interconnection with everyone. And so when I would do something with loving intention, that would create some of the biggest ripples of after effect from my actions. And so that really, I mean, it opened my eyes. It really opened my eyes. And the things that I thought were important, like becoming the chief engineer of the research vessel, and in my 20s, I thought those were the things that my ego and myself were very proud of. But in the life review, they had very little significance. It was incredible to see how little meaning there was in the life review over there. And so it gave me a different perspective on legacy as to, what we leave behind. I think, the more that we interact with each other with loving intention and being mindful and present when we're with other people and in certain situations, that we come from that sort of center, that's when we leave a legacy, because that's what creates the biggest ripples. So we went through this life review, and I got to see the good, the bad, the ugly, I got to see it all. And I got to see, the better side of myself as well. And we came to a certain point where, where I had drowned, but the life review continued. And so I didn't realize what was going on at the time. In fact, I was a little disoriented as a result of it. And, but my soul family just loved me. They supported me. They buoyed me up with some more energy, and we just continued. And it's kind of interesting. Once we crossed that threshold of what I had lived and and at the time I didn't realize was future life, it was different, because in my life and in the life review of my actual life, everything was crystal clear. All the interactions, all the ripples, all of that, and every interaction that I had was crystal clear. But then when we crossed that threshold, it was like going down a corridor where I had this central path, but I could see there was also this periphery that wasn't quite as in focus. And I realize now that that part that was out of focus is part of our free will, that we kind of agree as to what we're going to accomplish in this life. And so we have this main path, and a lot of times those are set up in our life as our intentions, as our ideals, our guiding star, basically. And so if the center corridor was fairly clear, and so as we went down, I got to see these interactions that I didn't know anything about. But I also realized that if I wanted to, I could go off to the right, and then eventually I'd be led back to the center. And if I went off to the left, but it showed me that we have the free will to explore in life, and to kind of make our way through life.
And then I went through a hell of my own making. My life review was to suffer all the pain that I gave away in my life, from the point of view, from the inside. When I say the point of view, I mean inside the bodies of every single person, inside the brains, inside the emotions and the emotional responses and the physical suffering. I felt what they felt, juxtaposed and simultaneous to my own justifications and emotional state for causing them their pain, my reasons, my hurt. And there was this disproportionate thing that happened. Like the pain I gave away was the size of a mountain, each event, and my reasoning and emotional state for giving them the pain was the size of a pebble. And so the amount of pain that I turned out to have given away in each event, and also in an accumulation of events, was disproportionately humongous. And meanwhile, I'm judging myself, and I'm seeing the pain I caused these others, and I'm seeing the paltry reasons, the inexcusable reasons that I gave myself to cause them this immense amount of pain, which turned out to be pain I gave myself. So I gave this pain away, and I got to keep this pain. It attached permanently to me. And so meanwhile, I I hear the voice that is the universe in which I am, in this greater darkness where I am, and it's all around me, and it's right next to me, but I can't. It's the only thing I can't see. I can't see the embodiment of the voice. I just hear it like reverberating all around me, right next to me and inside of me, saying, I love you, I love you, I love you, I made you, I know you, I've always known you. There's nothing about you, about Peter, that has ever been unknown to me. I witnessed everything and showed me all of that as I went through my hell review. And I was shown all of humanity. I was shown all of humanity's brokenness and the suffering that everyone gives to everybody else. Whether, you always hurt the ones you love. So the ones I loved the most in my life were the ones I hurt the most. And so, and I was being shown that the that it wasn't my fault that I was a human being capable of hurting people, that's um, in, endemic in what it is to be a human being. You can't you can't not do that. If you're a human being, this is going to happen. You are going to hurt people. You can't stop that. You can make choices to minimize it, but you can't stop it. And that we didn't make the system. It was very clear to me that I was in the matrix. I was part of the matrix. I didn't make the matrix, and no person had. And that the greatest suffering that anyone had caused in the history of the world, our world, was still only the size of a hill, small little hill, compared to the the distance between the sun and the next galaxy over. And that great distance the the distance is the amount of love that the divine has, and the amount of perfection that the divine has, and this unlimited being. Um, I could see the super tiny size of the suffering that I had caused in comparison to the purity of love, and that became my measurement of myself. And so I didn't judge myself against other people, and I didn't judge myself against those people who I hurt. I judged myself against the purity of the unlimited divine being. And I judged myself guilty because there is so much love. And look at me, I loved so little in comparison. And and yet all the love I gave away and all the love I got given to me, I got to keep. And this voice was speaking inside me, and I love you, I made you, I forgive you, I know you, I created you, I'm creator, you're creature, and I love you. And as I listened, as I finally got out of the pain that I had caused and listened to what was being said to me, I turned and faced love and was forgiven and infilled with beauty, love, truth, joy, knowledge, understanding, bliss, healing, wholeness, adoration, hope, knowledge. The list is long.
It's kind of like life is a game board, like Monopoly or Clue or whatever metaphor you want. So life is the game board, but we've got this dice, and we have these pieces we move around, and we have choices we can make as we move around. So we are held accountable, not for the game board, but for what we do on the game board. And the payoff is in life review. Not only will we connect the dots, but then, eek, we are put in the actual perspective of people whose lives we've touched, consciously or unconsciously. Whew. So, I mean, one woman I talked to had no memory of driving in, going up to I-5 in a dark and stormy night. She had a life review. Turned out she was held fully accountable, even though she had no knowledge of someone behind her, a woman who was terrified because she was lost. She saw the taillights of this near-death experiencer and followed them up, and then was on I-5 northbound, which is where she wanted to be. And she was filled with such relief and such gratitude for the woman who's having the near-death experience. And the woman got to feel it all. At the same time, there's a guy named Tom Sawyer, who's now deceased, but real name, another abuser who had a life review, and he abused his kids and his wife. They did hang in with him after he survived, but we call it road rage now, but at one point, and he was an Olympian, so he was like a very athletic person when this happened. He didn't like the driving habits of the guy ahead of him, so when they got to a red light, Tom got out of his car, marched over, and grabbed this driver by the clothes, and then roundhoused him with a closed fist, and then marched back. He assaulted him, and then pulled out around him. Tom was that kind of a guy. He had that life review, so he's in kind of this humming car, and in the side mirror, he sees himself coming up. He goes, "Uh-oh, I remember this," and he felt himself being grabbed. But again, the perspective and the fear, utter fear, and then the physical pain and the confusion of being assaulted. He felt it all, and on and on and on. Tom changed so much that in time, he actually became one of the bodyguards for the Dalai Lama.
And I stopped at a what would have been a vast TV screen. I mean, today we have large TV screens. In the 60s, we didn't. It was the largest TV screen I'd ever seen in my life. I still haven't seen one as big. We stopped at the screen, and the screen lit up. And when the screen lit up, I began to process the 26 years that I had just lived before I entered this state. The screen had 3 columns. On the left was my life as I had planned it just before I was born. And what it is that I was intending to accomplish when I got to Earth. The middle column were all the conditions that came to me during my 26 years of life in order to help me accomplish what I had planned. And then there was this third column, which I just burst out in laughter, because the third column looked as though someone had created a stamp. And the stamp said, objective not accomplished, objective not accomplished, objective not accomplished. So I'm moving my head from the left-hand column of what was planned to the circumstances that came into my life that should have helped me to accomplish what I came to accomplish. But instead, I had other ideas in my head about what it is I wanted to accomplish in this earthly life, you see. And so therefore, these laudable ideals were not being met. And therefore, this stamp, as I look at objective number 1, number 2, number 3, there was this stamp on the right hand said, objective not accomplished. And then I think the screen moved. And when it moved now, I'm like watching a screen of my life, how I had lived it. And, I had gotten married at 19 and went to England. We left, I was born in Guyana, South America. We left South America and traveled to England with the intention of getting a better life and getting an education. And it seems as though we were in the middle of accomplishing that, but I had adopted all of the first world objectives. You got to have money, you got to be rich, you got to, you have to accumulate stuff that will speak to what you think is your identity. And I'm watching this as this screen is scrolling very slowly. And I'm looking at the objectives that were set and I'm like, how could I have been so stupid? I spent my energy and my time accumulating stuff that had nothing to do with the plan that I came with. And as I'm looking at that, I could see why I attracted the people I attracted into my life, some of whom were very positive and very loving and very caring. Others were there as challenges. And one of the most amazing thing about that is particular one person in my life who I considered very negative at the time and very challenging was really someone who really lived with me in another lifetime, loved me dearly, and figured out that love was never going to allow me to get it. So in this lifetime, that person made a determination that they would devote their life to irritating me, to finally get me to where I needed to be. It's the things that we do, that smile that we flash that is full of light. It's the things that we do voluntarily and without compensation that really brings the blessings into our lives. And the screen came to a stop. And I was one of those young people living this Christian life with a lot of questions from the Bible. At age 9, 10, 12, I had these phenomenal questions. And so the one question that popped into my mind, now I'm standing there and the screen is completely blank. And the question that popped into my mind was, he, meaning Christ, said, I came so you can have life and have it more fully. What did he mean by that? And no sooner I asked that question, the screen began to re-scroll. And now I am at the Akashic record. At that time, I did not know what it was, which is the record of everything that has happened, everything that has a potential to manifest itself into the world. And I'm now looking at the Akashic record, and now they have taken 6 past lives and dumped it into the one that I just reviewed. And the screen starts to re-scroll, and now it's a whole different review. I am looking at myself, living in times when there was darkness on the earth and people walked around with torches. I watched myself as a woman and what it meant to be a woman in those days. And there was war between the tribes. And they decided that they will take the women and put them in small boats and put them out to sea because they were losing the war, and they were afraid that if the women got killed, there would be no way of generating new life. And they put us on small boats and put us out to sea. And most of us, including myself, drowned. And in this lifetime, I've really, really had some love to be in the ocean, etc., but fear. And I'm now working through that fear. I saw myself at when they pulled Moses out of the bulrushes. I was one of the women who was present at that time. I saw myself living dire poverty. I mean, hunger. And you see, when you're reviewing this thing, you're experiencing it. You're experiencing the hunger. You're experiencing the fear, you know. Then I saw myself as of course, I had the experience of being very poor. I also had the experience of being wealthy. It's all balanced. But I think the one that really, when I left, it took a while for me to be able to process, was I saw myself as a child, a Black child in the cotton fields, picking cotton besides my mother. And I could feel the pounding of the hoof of the master man on the horse. I can hear every time that whip goes out, because if you can't keep up your quota, you're whipped, you see. And I know that I'm a child, and the fear that I feel that when the master man gets to me, I'll be whipped because I'm a child. I can't keep up with the quota. And then the screen moves to another lifetime. And guess what, Melissa? I am the white man on the horse, flipping the whip in the cotton fields. We live it all. We live it all. There's no need to point fingers.
Of course, you can live any way you want to. You're in a free will state. That was one of the gifts we were given as humans on the planet. But when you die, you have a life review. And in your life review, you are not, there's not a tribunal that's sitting there judging everything you did. You get to judge yourself. You get to feel what everybody else felt who was interacting with you at the time of the interactions. And you get to judge, was that the best version of me? Was that the way I wanted to show up? Was that what all I could do? Did I have a choice? Would I make a different choice if I had it? So you become aware of your own foibles, your own mistakes, your own slips, whatever it was. And, that's where compassion, love, and understanding comes in also. We are all doing the best we know how with the tools we've got and the gifts that we've got. And we have to, give ourselves a break. It doesn't mean you can go out and be a horrifically bad human being to other people. No, and you shouldn't even be that to yourself. But there isn't anything that's stopping you except you.
So we went all the way down through this whole huge open area, and then into the back and into a smaller hallway area. And as we went into this hallway, there was a door that opened, and we went into a much smaller room. And in this room, there were other spiritual beings, and they were all like around a big, huge conference table, and like they were waiting for us to come in. And although I couldn't tell you who these beings were, I felt that they knew me and that I knew them. They cared very deeply about me. And I also got the impression that they had helped me plan my life before I was born. They were like my soul group type of thing. And so anyway, as we came in and I was there and my guide was there too, they said, now we're going to review your life that you've lived up to this point. And when they said that, the whole center of this big like conference table type thing, it had looked almost like it was a clear screen in the middle. And once they said that, it was as though a hologram appeared up out of the middle of it. And I began to see my entire life, and not just see it, but relive it again. Like I wasn't just watching it go by, I was actually re-experiencing all these different moments of my life, and also experiencing the main person I was interacting with at all these major things that happened in my life. And I was able to feel what it was like to be that other person. At the same time, I was re-feeling how I felt. And it was just amazing, because I got to see so many things. I got to see where I was wrong about what I thought somebody else was feeling. And I got to see how they were affected by our interaction, and whether it was something good that they carried on to other people, or whether it was something that hurt them and they carried that hurt on to other people. It was just an amazing ability to see the ripple effect of how you interact with other people, and that it's how we're all connected, and just amazing what grows out of all those human interactions. They responded completely lovingly and in full acceptance, and said, you are on earth to experience these things and to learn to feel love and compassion. And you can't, if everything is perfect and you never have any sort of difficult times or situations where you are tested, then you're not going to be able to feel as much love and compassion as we would like to have you grow to feel. So all of that kind of came through. And it was, although I was wanting to judge me, none of them were wanting to judge me in any way, and were saying, no, this is okay. This is part of what happens and part of what's supposed to happen. And look how you're feeling now, and how much better you understand.